So I guess you and I sit here.
말에 늘 모를 것이다. Someone is introducing it.
Good morning. Welcome to UC Santa Barbara. We are so glad to have you here for this very special event with His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. This morning, this morning's lecture on the nature of mind is unique an opportunity for us to expand our knowledge of Buddhist traditions, philosophy, and scholarship. This is an area of academic strength of UC Santa Barbara. Our Buddhist studies program has flourished within the interdisciplinary environment of our campus. It draws on the strength of its home department, our highly regarded Department of Religious Studies, our Center for Interdisciplinary Humanities, and many other departments and programs in humanities, fine arts, social sciences, education, engineering, environment, and the sciences. We have with us today many of our community members, donors, and friends who have helped us build a world-class teaching and research program in this area of study. We gratefully acknowledge all of your support. There have been so many people who have helped us make today's event possible. I'm afraid I simply just don't have enough time to thank everyone who should be thanked. But the fact that all tickets were sold out within 2 hours is testimony to how strongly you support us. I would like to mention that my colleague who invited Dalai Lama, he's a former translator for Dalai Lama. His scholarship is known around the world. He is the 14th Dalai Lama Endowed Chair in Tibetan Buddhism and Cultural Studies, Professor Jose Cabezal. I would also like to recognize our Executive Dean of the College of Letters and Science, David Marshall. Dean Marshall has been a strong promoter for this event every step along the way, Dean Marshall. And I must also acknowledge the extraordinary efforts of Director Celesta Bellici and our Arts and Lectures team, and Gretchen Favre, Nicole Clanford, and Stacy Janik. We feel so fortunate to have the opportunity to learn from Dalai Lama today and to be inspired by his message and scholarship. The Dalai Lama is an incomparable Buddhist teacher. In every aspect of his life, he embodies the principles he teaches. Perhaps the best way to describe these principles is to remember that he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1989. I might take this opportunity to mention that UC Santa Barbara is known for our Nobel laureates. Among the audience today, we have Nobel laureates in physics, in chemistry, and in economics here to welcome His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I don't know where you are, my colleague, just wave your hand. To introduce the Dalai Lama, we are honored to have with us the chairman of our UC Board of Regents, Richard Blum. Regent Blum is the founder and the chairman of the American Himalayan Foundation. The focus of this nonprofit organization is on providing education and healthcare, as well as supporting cultural and environmental preservation for the Himalayan region. The friendship between the Dalai Lama and Regent Blum goes back more than 3 decades. I cannot think of anyone better to provide this morning's introduction. Please welcome Chairman Blum.
Your Holiness, Chancellor Yang, thank you very much. This is a difficult moment for me to express how I feel, because the 2 things I care the most about, His Holiness, the Tibetan people, the people of the Himalayas, and the University of California have gotten together. And I must say, as chairman of the board, you're supposed to kind of be equal about the different campuses, and having gone to Berkeley, spent a lot of time at Berkeley, when it comes to Buddhist studies and religious studies, Jose Cabazon and this campus and your faculty is the best place to go. You've gotten so good that Berkeley's a little bit jealous, and they're trying to do better, and that's okay too. As you know, the first professionalship, the Dalai Lama Studies Chair, was started here. This is a very short trip for His Holiness to the United States, and we're honored that he's going to visit 2 campuses here today, and he'll be speaking at the Greek Theater in Berkeley tomorrow. I've been given a ridiculous task here. It says, relate some personal observations and history of your relationship with His Holiness, and you've got 2 minutes, and I've known him 38 years. Well, first let me say that we were reincarnated at about the same time. No, it's true. We're only 10 days difference in age, but we won't, I don't know. Everybody knows when he was born, but I don't talk about when I was born, except there's 10 days difference. The only difference is we know who he was in his last life. He was the 13th Dalai Lama, who was a wonderful man. And of course, he was then reincarnated once again as the Dalai Lama. What we don't know is who I was in my last life. And I must have done something really bad to be reborn an investment banker. But I've tried to make up for it since then through our American Himalayan Foundation and our work with the university. As I think many of you know, my wife is Senator Dianne Feinstein. And thank you. I'll let her know you care. We first went to visit His Holiness in Dharamsala in 1978 when it wasn't possible for His Holiness to visit here. I think we had something to do with clearing that up. And his first visit to the United States, in fact, was to San Francisco in 1979. Not only is His Holiness one of the finest people I've ever met, but also the Tibetan people, by and large, are spiritual and kind. And we must help them preserve their tradition and learn from them. That's what this is all about. Contrary to what the Chinese propaganda will let you believe, the Tibetans in exile have developed a democratic government in Dharamsala. My wife and I have engaged the leadership in Beijing for a long time, trying to help resolve this issue. And unfortunately, we haven't made much progress, but we will never quit because all this is much too important. But we have, through the International Campaign for Tibet and our American Himalayan Foundation, which provides humanitarian and educational assistance we have 170 projects throughout the Himalayan region, and I would say probably half of them are for the Tibetans, either in Tibet directly or in exile in refugee camps and other centers in Nepal and India. It was very easy for me to fall in love with the Tibetans. In 1968, the first night out on the trail, I stayed in a Tibetan refugee camp, and small children sat on your lap. They were either born there or carried over the mountains. It was amazing. They spoke English, and I guess those of us who had that kind of introduction were gone for day one. So it was through that and my interest that we met His Holiness, and of course he will tell you his religion is rather simple. It's about kindness and compassion, and we've tried to learn a little bit about that and tried to thank His Holiness and his people by the projects we've done over the years. So I think I've gone way over my 3 minutes, but anyhow, thank you, Your Holiness, for being here. It's now your turn, and you have way more than 3 minutes to talk.
Of course, the topic about nature of mind and the sources of my talk, mainly Buddhist text. So therefore, at the beginning, I want to recite one shloka, verse, the salutation to Buddha. That verse wrote by Nagarjuna. Kange tusi yeso ne dawa do jeba be jere ta be chene de jeba kwatam ta la cha che lo. Dear brothers and sisters, of course, Chancellor, and my long-time friend, and the Dean, and also long-time my friend, although he no longer as a monk, but sometimes I refer still Bhikshu. So, indeed, I feel great honor talk a large number of people and in the university
campus.
So great honor. Last 2 days, somewhat called flu or cold. So a lot of liquid come from here. And my voice,
Voice.
a little bit unusual, but okay. I think usually my voice, I think a little better than today's voice. Now, originally, lecture about some Buddhist concept, they hear a bit longer. So at that time, the concerned people arranged this text. Now, since the duration of my lecture shortened, so now I will not go through that text. Now, the topic, nature of mind. Although all major religious traditions carry same message of love, compassion. And with that, spirit of forgiveness, tolerance, and also self-discipline out of awareness, the negative thing, sort of negative consequences. So knowing that, and some kind of self-discipline. And also in material field, more contentment. As these practice, same in all traditions. So now these loving kindness or compassion, these are mental quality. And also try to reduce anger, hatred, fear, suspicion. These negative, destructive emotions also part of mind. And basically, the joyfulness, pains, these two things are experience or feeling of mind. So basically, all major tradition, and all, of course faith, also part of mind. So all major tradition is carrying message or practice or method to improve mind. Same. But now because of differences, the theistic religion, non-theistic religion, the theistic religion, the emphasis, importance of faith. Faith towards Creator, towards God. That is the way of approach. And non-theistic, such as Jainism and Buddhism, and some other ancient Indian traditions, such as Sangha, one part of Sangha philosophy, is non-theistic. So non-theistic's essential idea is something like self-creation. and also the concept of law of causality, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. So therefore, ultimately, this something like creator is within ourselves. So then naturally, not this body also important as a basis of the mind. Now, for example, human body is the basis of human mind. With this, with the connection with the body, then we can, you can say it's a different mind of human being, mind of animal, mind of insect, like that. So that, and also the sensorial levels of consciousness entirely based on the part of the body. Like that. But ultimately, body action, including voice, because of the verbal action, ultimately depend on the motivation. So motivation means mind. So, according to the law of causality, things which we want and things which we do not want, all ultimately related with our motivation, our mind. So now, in order to achieve happy life, joyful life, we have to take care about our mind, motivation. Now, in order to overcome, in order to reduce suffering, we have to deal with negative emotion or destructive emotion, which ultimately bring these unwanted things. So therefore, special emphasis in these traditions about mind. Now naturally, logically, when deal with mind, we should have thorough knowledge about mind. Then also, within the what we call mind or consciousness, I don't know. Within that, there are so many different
Categories, types.
Different types of mind. Thousands. Then all these destructive emotions, the only way to deal these destructive emotions only through mind, not through matters or injection or surgery, not like that, but only through another mind. Now, for example, anger, hatred will not reduce through some drugs or alcohol. Maybe sometimes sleep, maybe. Even if there's a lot of anger, sound sleep may help reduce. The next morning, your anger a little bit smaller. Actually, they basically, all these negative, destructive emotion, they dealing these destructive emotion in order to reduce. The only way is opposite mind, contradictory mind. First, realize the contradictory sort of mind, then increase that. That's the only way to change or to reduce these negative emotions. So, in other words, in order to reduce the destructive emotion, the only way is to increase these constructive emotions. That's the only way. So therefore, again, we have to know what kind of mind, what kind of thought is ultimately destructive, and what kind of mind or emotion ultimately constructive. So we have to know that. Then, big question, destructive emotion can eliminate or not? Now, this is a big question. In order to find answer for that question, we have to know the ultimate nature of mind and the basis of all these destructive emotions. Then you get some understanding, the possibility of elimination these destructive emotions. So therefore, in Buddhist text, there quite a lot of information about emotion, about mind. And then also, I think particularly in tantric teaching, since the tantric teaching also involve some, what's the physical,
No.
Usually we call zaruntigli.
Yeah, some manipulation and application of physiological forces.
So therefore, you see, it mentioned the sort of different level of mind,
Subtleties.
like grosser level of mind, and more subtle, like that. That mentioned only in tantric text, in tantric teaching. So for example, just this moment, our sensorial consciousness, our mind, fully functioning, active. Although simultaneously, the thought also go simultaneously. But sensorial consciousness are much more dominant. Then during dream time, the sensorial consciousness no longer function. Only thought, another level. Then during deep sleep, without dreaming, another level of deeper level of consciousness, of mind. So then also, when at the time of fainting, even stop breathing, another level of deep level of mind. Then at the time of death, all physiology, physical things, now for example, the heart beating stop, then blood circulation in the brain within a short moment cease. Then all the neurons now no longer function. So all grosser level of mind then stop. I think something like human mind then no longer there, stop. But the only indication, we ordinarily we can notice that some people after death, at the time of death, physical level, dead. Clinically recognize or declare dead. But the body remains very fresh. Now, one example, my own senior tutor, after death, about next 13 days, his physical, his body remained very fresh. And then recently, one senior
No, a Tibetan Lama, the former throne holder of Ganden.
I think last year, after he
Passed away.
passed away, I think next almost 3 weeks, his body remained fresh. So fortunately, at that time, as soon as I heard that Rinpoche's body still remained fresh, so then I asked one medical center in Dharamsala, since we already kept some machine to check a person who remained in that state. So some simple mission available. So I sent a message to them, and then they sent some people and carried those simple mission and put some wires on the head like that. So although they very detailed analysis not yet sort of finalized, but seems that after a few days, clinically dead, some weak electric sort of movement.
Signals.
Signals.
Some electrical signals were there.
In brain. So it is, they say, very unusual. So that we believe there's still that person's innermost subtle mind is still in the body. So some influence in the body. So that is we call most subtle consciousness. So there are many levels. Now here one thing. Now I shifted to the Tibetan. Ngamba zönal ya 타게 탕제 사시거래. gemigi lumudengi. 타타 롱가만데 타게 탕제. 디 셴주산에 패지 지원모도 집에 그돌라 기디글로 시작이야래. 다이네 ngomba kundu naliya chisim chamu yina lumade imbe kyabasha chisim chamu liya lumade mado gemegi shego mare da do charu chime kisto da do rakwa wonde chayunde gemegi namsha she da 참여가 만 레윤데 ene gemegi shego mare lumade korare esda sheba da ngage shungna shayunde chisim chamude 난저게 떡기 개발을 교토를 했어. 이네 지금 참 미게 원래 남의 교토야 매래. 사드네인데 디 개발스도가 미게 로드즈 차디 러시 제주 군도 유여의 링달라 미게 남도 용내. 러시 제주 군도 가사에 제라 아니 동버시 내가 올라 미게 별로지야 나래. 사실 미게 별로지 라볼루베 나마도 믿어가. 이네 겨와데 누가 해지게 별로지 겨와를 교수하시도가. 그래서 되게 가르치고 있어요. 시바 참여가 내윤데 개별로 가서 탑식 쓰면이나 개별로 개퇴하지. 미게 별로 개퇴하면 되겠지. 개발시켜요.
So, talking about the classical Buddhist sources for understanding the nature of mind, one important source is the Abhidhamma literature. And in the Abhidhamma text, particularly in the Abhidhamma Kosha, which is the treasury of knowledge by Vasubandhu, when he talks about the death process, and he talks about how the various moments of consciousness, one give rise to another consciousness, and also the transition from a virtuous state of mind to a neutral and to a non-virtuous state of mind, and vice versa. When he was explaining this, in this context, he explains that the moment of consciousness at the time of death can be depending upon different individuals, and at that particular situation, some of them can be a virtuous, some of them can be non-virtuous, and some of them can be simply a neutral state of mind. However, in Asanga's Abhidhamma Samuccaya, another Abhidhamma text, compendium of knowledge, here he says that if you really analyze the moment of consciousness at the point of death, at that very subtle point, the state of mind can neither be virtuous nor non-virtuous. It is beyond that dichotomy of virtue versus non-virtue, but rather it is a completely neutral state of mind. And then another source for the Tibetan understanding of the subtle levels of consciousness is the Vajrayana, the tantric teachings. And there it is acknowledged that even that subtle moment of consciousness at the point of death, for a yogi, an experienced meditator, it is possible to affect that state of mind from a neutral state to a virtuous state. So the point here is that the destructive states of mind, the non-virtuous states of mind, they can only operate up to a level of consciousness, and beyond which a very subtle the subtle levels of consciousness arises, then these non-virtuous and destructive emotions and thoughts can no longer function. So that suggests that the destructive and non-virtuous mental states are dependent upon there being comparatively a grosser level of consciousness.
So, so now I feel the complete sort of understanding or explanation about mind. I think we should include the tantric text.
The Vajrayana perspective. No.
So now, in Guhi Samanza, Tantra text, Sangyu Tzu ma Sangyu Tzu ma re, Sangyu ka Gyu Gyu ya na, hare. Doi chao ne, shi re da ka da, Gyu ni Gyun shi chao cha, Gyu ni Gyun shi chao cha, Gyu ni namba Sungyu des, shi dan, 다 대신 가서 누르게. Now I fail to recite the text. I can't remember now. 간이면이 시규, 탑규, 미초밤, 레비규, 유숨셰트.
So in one of the Vajrayana texts, known as the Guhyasamaja Tantra, there is an explanation of what is meant by the word Tantra. And Tantra is explained in terms of a continuum. So when we say continuum, what kind of continuum there can be? So it identifies a continuum in the sense of a basic continuum of consciousness.
gyuni gyunshi chawa chas. Gyuni namba sundu des. Shida tishinda jungdeni tabsa chihari. Shi gyu, tabi gyu, michopam, dribi gyu.
So, and then it explains the meaning of Tantra, the continuum, in terms of the basic continuum and the method that one can apply, and then the resultant state that one can achieve from that method.
That actually the consciousness, the level of consciousness, 3 categories. One, basis. One, not tackling that mind, another level. The third level, out of dealing with the mind, finally can be completely purified mind. So this also can say the first reality, present reality, and explanation about that I consider science. And then second, the tackling.
Application.
Application. That's method. That's philosophy or concept. The third, as a result. Like Four Noble Truths. When Buddha first state, first because the wheel of Dharma, which is start, the Denshim, all of them are child, they were child, they would have devas, devas sum said, she nature. She did it be in any Langdon Judoki, child deva. Langdon Judo, Teta Chavina, Devu, any Sabashi, the video Shiva, young to Sundo.
So this is comparable to understanding the Buddha's first public sermon on the Four Noble Truths. If you look at the Buddha's actual sermon, he presents his teachings on the Four Noble Truths by way of 3 repetitions. In the first stage, he identifies the specific nature of the truths, the truth of suffering, its origin, cessation, and the path that leads to the cessation. And then in the second round of explanation of the Four Noble Truths, then he talks about the functions of each of these, knowledge of each of these truths. So the fact that suffering must be recognized, the origin of suffering must be removed, cessation of the suffering must be actualized, and the path must be cultivated. So this is second round, he explains what needs to be done with that understanding. And then in the third round of repetition, he explains what are the results that one may attain as a result of application of that knowledge. So here we can see that even in the first public sermon, Buddha's teaching on the Four Noble Truths, he presents the teachings in the context of understanding the nature of reality, the first stage. Second is the application of that knowledge in one's daily life and practice. And then the third is the result one will achieve from that path and application.
So usually I make sort of 3 sort of categories. Distinction of Buddhism. Buddhist science, the first part I consider as Buddhist science. Second, Buddhist concept or Buddhist philosophy. Buddhist concept or philosophy come on the basis of today's reality. So that's Buddhist science. Then Buddhist concept or philosophy. Then Buddhist religion. Because of that, because of possibility to elimination of all negative emotion, then worthwhile start some practice. So here in this text also, the surely, right? So they did what? Shortly, just to what correct? Right. Send it. Jadju, the Shamde. You will mushil assumes some she's a jet, you will give whatever. What turn a 20 years old limit to Yamson Lambe, Yam daughter, Solemn years, but Jesus Shavos at the Dari, Tambudi, the Azure, the Semgi, Tade, the Ranshi, Dishat. Then a nibadi Tendishime Induzane, Longdo Jukto Shat. Tell it then, and Rebunia Putia.
In the text that was originally planned to be commented upon, in fact, we read a similar presentation here. So it says that the actual explanation has three sections. The first is how to analyze the fundamental ground of the mind and how to identify the innate primordial state. So that corresponds to understanding the nature of reality. And then searching for the hidden dimension of reality by analyzing how the mind arises, abides, and moves on.
Correct.
So, and then so the second one says, having effected the introduction, how to implement that into practice. And then the third one says how the levels of realization and experiences arises on the basis of that practice.
And the question you
Two.
Question you Now, in the past, I think more than 20 years, we had some sort of serious discussion or seminar with scientists. There is some sort of dialogue or discussion, or actually mutual learning. Of course, basically it's four fields: cosmology, neurobiology, and subatomic physics, such as quantum physics, then psychology. So, and quantum physics also is in some similar view. Cosmology, basically same, but then some particular sort of description about the world, flat, and in the center, Mount Meru. These are up-to-date. Of course, the Buddhist text, the different description about cosmology. So therefore,
so in a sense, the Buddhists have a liberty to choose which one they want to take.
Then some of the quantum, such as quantum physics, really of the great interest over 2,000 years, sort of what's today, Buddhist concept, and modern, latest sort of
findings,
scientific sort of
findings,
physicist sort of finding. There are many similarities. Then, in any way, about the physical part, there are many things to learn from modern science to Buddhist. So really worthwhile, listen or study from them. Then the neurobiology, although the Buddhists, particularly in Tantrayana, say mind and energy. So quite interesting, you see, to investigate the relation between emotions and the neurons and these things. But as far as the physical side, the modern science, much more advanced. So very useful to learn from them. But the connection between neurons and the consciousness, mind. Still, this is not very clear. The modern science or psychology, usually they call soft science.
Soft science.
I think very young, very, very young, something like kindergarten. The ancient Indian sort of science of mind seems much advanced. So a lot of information, something useful to modern scientists. So therefore, my scientist sort of friend, they provide that simple equipment to test. So although they, since I think almost 10 years ago, some equipment is put there, but then just we wait, someone who should die. But then, when the equipment available, no one die through such sort of experience. Then when in the past, there's quite a number of occasions, this happened, but then mission not available. So now last year, two things combined now. So in any way, so these things really interesting. So the further sort of investigation or acquiring our knowledge through joint effort is very good. So now the mind. Now here, since our meeting with scientists about mind, one thing in India, perhaps I think more than 2,000 years, perhaps around 3,000 years, there is some knowledge about sensorial consciousness or mind, and yilukasa.
Mental, sensory versus mental experiences.
So in this modern science, this is a savage image and never such one.
So in the course of our conversations with scientists vis-a-vis classical Indian thought, one thing that seems to be clear is that on the part of the Western science and its kind of theoretical traditions, there doesn't seem to be, unlike in the classical Indian context, a clear distinction drawn between sensory level of experiences versus mental level of experiences.
That's very, very important, make distinction. The sensorial consciousness of mind very much related with the body, with the body element.
Body elements.
The mental level, as I mentioned earlier, the grosser level very much related with the body element, but more subtler, more autonomy. And then the motivation strategy,
and also when we talk about the underlying states of mind that motivate behavior, and then we're not talking at the level of sensory level of experience, it was talking at the level of mental level of experience.
제가 팬은 되댕에기 이루 똑같이 자주시하라 온부시에 간에 딱지시다 찍고 시작하고 그러셔.
So therefore, in order to understand the functions and operations of this mental level of experience, which is really what determine a lot of our experience of happiness and unhappiness and harm and injury and so on, simply focusing our observation and study on the sensory level of experience is not going to be adequate.
Now, since Tibetan Buddhism, actually the pure lineage of Nalanda tradition, it is very clear that because in 8th century, although I think interest about Buddhism since 7th century developed and tried to learn already began, I think. But more sound basis,
Systematic.
Ah.
Systematic.
systematic sort of establishment of Buddhist study or Buddhist practice, 8th century. The person who actually is carrying the main responsibility to teach and also give ordination, that's Shandarakshita. So on the invitation from Emperor, 8th century, Trisung Tezen, two Indian sort of the important gurus come. One, Guru Pema Sambhava, one, Shandarakshita. So the main responsibility, as I mentioned earlier, giving ordination and also give study lessons, mainly carried the Shandarakshita. So this Shandarakshita, very well known, great master, one of great master of Nalanda, and holder of Madhyamika philosophy, and also as the Shandarakshita, great logician. So I think since beginning of
So Nalanda monastic establishment began towards the beginning of the Common Era.
Then Nagarjuna come from that institution, and many other. And among them, the great philosopher as well as great logician come from
Lineage.
in that lineage. So this Shandarakshita, philosopher, Madhyamika philosopher, at the same time great logician. His sort of writing available in Tibetan translation shows such a wonderful logician as well as a philosopher. So naturally, the main introducer of Buddha Dharma in Tibet, one of the top scholar or great practitioner or great monk, bhikshu from Nalanda. So naturally, if the teacher, a philosopher or logician, and he wants his student should be that kind, isn't it? Logically. So therefore, I think till now, in Tibetan tradition, basically the Nalanda tradition, very clear. I often say telling people, I myself, when I study our tradition, mainly at the young age, 6, 7 years old, then we have to learn, then already begin learning by heart those root texts. So my own case, at that time, 6, 7 year old, no interest about Buddhism, no knowledge, as my
Richard Blum. Richard Blum.
Richard Blum mentioned the reincarnation of 13th Dalai Lama. I don't think. So you see, when I was young and start learning by heart these texts, no interest, great reluctance. My only interest is to play. So therefore, my tutor have to keep one whip. No, at that time, you see, myself and my elder brother, we both monk, you see, we both studied together. So my tutor kept 2 whips. One whip, ordinary whip, one whip, yellow whip. So that yellow whip should be considered as a holy whip. The yellow holy whip for holy person Dalai Lama. But you can imagine, if that holy whip used, I don't think any holy pain. I think pain is same. So out of fear, I study. I carry these study. You see these texts. So the point is, all these texts which I learned by heart, and also he, similar. And my bhikshu, the ex-bhikshu, also you see, all the same sort of experience. All these root texts wrote by Nalanda masters. Nagarjuna's text, or Arya Deva's text, Arya Asanga, Basubandh, like that. So all originally is wrote by Nalanda master. Of course, meantime, we also used to study commentary. Among the commentary, many Indian commentary, as well as Tibetan commentary. So we also used to read these things. But real texts, all you see, come from Nalanda, like that. So therefore, and then these commentary, whenever some important point reach, they always relying on quotation, one of the Indian well-known
Indian masters.
Master, like that. So therefore, it is very clear, the Nalanda tradition. Then also, Pema Sambhava there. So he also, I think he take special sort of responsibility to introduce Tantriyana. Although we believe or say among Tenjur, which text wrote by Indian masters, various Indian masters, which translated into Tibetan, about 200 volumes. Among them, quite a number of tantric texts or commentary wrote by, in name of Nagarjuna, and also Arya Deva, and many others. So therefore, so Tibetan Buddhist tradition, Nalanda lineage, and meantime, complete form of Buddhism. That means Pali tradition, all the Vinaya Sutra, original text, the original language is Pali language. And then in Tadusana,
So amongst the 3 collections, scriptural collections known as the 3 baskets, one is the basket on discipline. So the Tibetan canonical collection, the text on the discipline basket are primarily based on the Pali teachings.
Then Shijin Dodi, Pali
So within the 2 remaining baskets, one on sutra, the collection of discourses, the other is Abhidhamma or higher knowledge. For these, although there might be some specific Pali text, but primarily these were translated into Tibetan from Sanskrit language, Sanskrit sources. For example, in the Tibetan tradition, when we speak of Abhidhamma tradition, we speak of 2 systems of Abhidhamma, the lower Abhidhamma and the upper Abhidhamma.
So then, in Tibet, since 8th century, complete form of Buddhism Then this is the introduce and start. That usually we call Nganjur Nyingma.
The early translation school.
Then, 9th century, 10th century, 11th century, that children,
So during this period, the establishment of the Buddha Dharma in Tibet went through a turbulent and difficult period of degeneration.
And then Tibetan emperors, sort of organized emperor, also then decentralized.
And also,
pursue
Tibet as a country became splintered into different smaller kingdoms.
Then Sarma, George Pe, Roger Rizang did.
And then when around the time the Indian master Atisha came to Tibet, so this is in the early part of the 11th century, then what is known as the second phase of dissemination of Buddhism in Tibet occurred, and from this movement emerged other Tibetan traditions such as Kadampa school and the Kagyu school and the Sakya school.
Then later, Giluk tradition also. So all these say a complete form of Buddhism. That means
so each of these lineages embody the complete form of Buddhism, which means that they embody the teachings of all the vehicles, including the Vajrayana teachings as well.
Then Sangak and Tria Uber Yogas go to Rizitaba. Then Ma Anu Atis, when you took the Tabas, Tabaraboko, Susanata, Tabas this one.
So to give an example, in the early translation school, the Nyingma tradition, the tradition speaks of 9 yanas or 9 vehicles, and 9 vehicles are identified as the vehicles of the disciple, the self-enlightened ones, Pratyeka Buddhas, and the Bodhisattvas, the 3 external vehicles. And then within the Vajrayana teachings, there are Kriya, the action, Upa Tantra, and Yoga Tantra. So these are another set of teachings. And then finally, you have the so these are the external tantras or outer tantras, and then you have Maha Anu and Maha Tantra and Anu Tantra and Ati Tantra. So these are the 3 inner Vajrayana teachings. So we can see that there is a complete recognition of the complete form of Buddhist teachings.
So now the subtle mind is concerned. According to Dzogchen, Dzogchen, now here, Ma Anu Adi Dzogchen. Susanata, Numa Tenji Give, Ribukundu Sambus, that the Yamin.
So in the Nyingma tradition, particularly from the Dzogchen perspective, the great perfectionist perspective, then one speaks of one gives teachings at the level of pertaining to the subtlemost level of consciousness, which is the innate mind of clear light. And there the focus is primarily on introducing the nature of mind at that level and bringing about the realization of that awareness.
That they go two moimbe problem together. Some the river shanchen.
So one unique.
The river is a name, yeah, a lot river 시바세아가 리버디 멤버체 안데 남주다 리버 이시 사 정도와 리버 이시 세아가 리버 대강을 고려하래 제니 조조 루브로 되들 생부타냐체 예 때문에 다 교회 버시는 용땡에 된데들 리버 군두상보스 토마토 타만매봐.
So one unique method in the Great Perfection tradition is based upon drawing distinctions between what the tradition calls basic mind versus primordial awareness or Rigpa awareness. And here the distinction is understood on the basis of those mental states which are more occasional and adventitious and more temporary, and these belong to a basic, they are kind of more of a fluctuating nature. They are characterized as belonging to the basic ordinary state of mind, whereas Rigpa awareness is characterized as being devoid of that kind of fluctuation. They are ever present, and also they are recognized to be a primordial quality of consciousness. So the distinction is drawn between these two.
양 적진의 낭식이 적진 샘데 적진 롱데 아니 명앙데스 아니 명앙에 치고 난고 상고 아니 양상람이 과스 송도와
So, and within the Dzogchen teachings, of course, sorry, earlier I forgot that, so the Rigpa awareness that is characterized as being free from fluctuation, ever present and so on, is sometimes also referred to as Samandrabhadra, all goodness, and with no beginning, no end, and atemporal. So within the Dzogchen teachings, again, there are many different levels of teaching or many different classes of teachings. For example, the three primary classes of teachings are known as the cycle of mind teachings, cycle of expanse, and the cycle of instructions. So we see there are many different types of teachings even within the Dzogchen Great Perfection instructions.
딘데 먹고도 상고 될래야 예상 개봤어. 그 정신이다. 집에다 다 되겠지.
So this
예상 개봐 루브르에다 치면 제등에다 치면 사인도 전에 양상 개봤어.
So
퍼싱 슝나리아 시싱 슝나리아 정신 양대 아니 학자 양대 학면 양대 민회 양대 송도가 그래서 정신 양대 통번에 정신 용선 양하는 데바지 차디어 봐. 이내 정신 용선 양하는 데바도 저들이 이루잖아요. 정신 용선 양하는 데바도 매나 루브르 지제기 양대 용식 말봐. 삐뜨는 시 예상 개발도 매나 양상 개발 용토 말봐.
So this primordial mind, the Rigpa awareness, referred to as, characterized as Samandrabhadra, is in fact described as primordial Buddhahood. And this is a primordial quality of Buddhahood that we all possess. And however, this primordial quality of Buddhahood is obscured by adventitious mental factors, which are the afflictions and the various thought processes. And through practice, when this primordial quality of Buddhahood is removed, when all of these adventitious mental qualities, properties, processes are cleansed, then one becomes reawakened or re-enlightened. So the attainment of enlightenment is referred to as the reawakening or attainment of enlightenment. And this is, in a sense, analogous to an idea in the perfection of wisdom teachings, where the nature of one's mind is referred to as the natural nirvana, and the natural nirvana serves as the basis for the possibility of attaining a nirvana with residue and nirvana without residue, which are constituted by elimination of the afflictive forces. So if there is no natural nirvana, then there is simply no possibility of the attainment of the nirvana, actual nirvana. So the idea is similar. So similarly in the Dzogchen perfection teaching, because of the presence of the primordial Buddhahood in us, it allows the possibility to gain this reawakening, attainment of Buddhahood.
다 태고를 먹고 살디 질 담배 남샤라 태고를 먹고 요래서는 송어점 뭐임바 강사 지기 냠손 레베 그돌라 태고를 먹고 뒤 차장지 두세냐면 셔가지 근데 송야지 용기 뒤시라 야오르샤
So,
다 되그르스는 딩시 고미야 디 년두기 태고하세요 뒤시차지 다 되네 딩시 스파스 가소래 딩시 냠네 10차로 담으잖아요 는 때려야라 주니 룩중도 거네 아니 거주림 도림 그다음에 과학된 미야래 근데 되게 아니 랑제가 돼 버리지 되네 심지 친루 실하게 냠네 디디 다 실람버시 친루랑 투자다 디디 아니 전주스 배태 버리지 바로도 집에 바로도 집에 대배 장승 대배 냠네 디제 다 되네 하이 난저 고민도잖아요. 아니 저주기 두저 패배원도 제배이나 아니 다 저주도 세덤니 랑니 다 저도 될래 주 아니 시소 무줄래야 된지기 로나 숨기야래 저다 되는 인도산에 아니 지야 아니 오버 다 요가 디디 냠니치야 디디 준비 봤다 가다 사이는 좀 서도 되게 하래 되네네 개바 마요가 롱언의 요가 스잖아요 저롱이 냠네 디레인 거 하래 되네네 저거 어디 요가 스르잖아요 에네 리버 상대가 냠네 디치야디 자 도스네 강사지 디드 삼월로 먼저 추두체니 태버를 뭐 고갈로 냠네 치야지 요도가 그러나 롱진주도 나리야 단 제리네 다 사비샤요리 넘중에디 셰디 다 롱진주든기 냠니 서울베다 타som 공부 제윤도 냐라 둔던저 때에 야오레스기 둔던저디 때 아니 이신저디 때 애니데네 예수 고수문한 거 심리 예수디 거를 샥자체니 거를 샥부자도 쉬시라 뒤에온도 차베이나 되게다 민음 장로 줘가지고 디디 체 엔트네르 매르매게 택존즈 쉰즈 다 디디 니 냠면 간만 뒤트야 주나 역사요.
So when we speak about the 9 yanas or 9 vehicles from the early translation tradition's perspective, it's not a question of simply making a presentation about the general teachings of the Buddha, but in fact there is a tradition where the teachings of all the 9 yanas, 9 vehicles, are made relevant to the progress of an individual who is working on the path. So in this respect, then all the teachings of the 9 vehicles become relevant to the transformation of an individual person, a practitioner. So in this context, then the teachings and the practices of the Four Noble Truths correspond to the teachings of the disciples' vehicle. And then when the teachings of the Four Noble Truths are further elaborated, then the Four Noble Truths, the causal networks between suffering and origin and cessation of the path, when they are further elaborated, then the teachings on the 12 links of dependent origination becomes relevant. And here, both the reversal order and the sequential order of the relationship between the 12 links are explained and then meditated upon. Then the practitioner is essentially implementing the teachings of the Pratyeka Buddha, the self-enlightened ones. And then when the individual moves on to the next stage, then the teachings on generating bodhicitta and the altruistic awakening mind, and based upon that implements the practices of the 6 perfections, giving a moral discipline and so on, culminating in the cultivation of shamatha, tranquil abiding, and also vipassana, a special insight, then the practitioner is implementing the teachings of the bodhisattva vehicle. On that basis, then one moves on to the next level, where deity yoga practices are brought into one's daily practice, and then, depending upon the levels of one's experience, the deity yoga practice becomes ever more subtler, and that's how one moves through this next three vehicles. And initially, for some individuals, it is said that the Kriya action tantra meditation may involve visualizing one's meditation deity in the form of a master outside, and then from whom one receives blessings and empowerments and so on. But gradually, as the deity yoga realization becomes more and more profound, one moves on to the next stages. And then finally, one moves on to the Mahayoga and Anuyoga and Adiyoga. Then there, the manipulation of the subtle energies and the channels and the drops, these practices, the more advanced Vajrayana practices, are also brought into the person's path. And then all of these, having established as a kind of a preliminary practice, one then moves on to the Dzogchen, the great perfection, Ati yoga practice, where the focus is really on affecting the realization of the Rigpa, primordial awareness. Therefore, when and this is in fact the approach that is presented in the 7 treasuries of Longchenpa, for example. And in fact, I normally recommend to people who wishes to engage in the great perfection practice to proceed by first study Longchenpa's treasury on the philosophical systems, Drupta Zu, and then follow that with the treasury of wish-fulfilling jewel, Yishin Zu, and then on that basis also study Semying Elso, the mind at ease, which there is a custom of doing the study and practice of this over a period of 145 days. Yes. So if each of the meditation cycles so each of these rounds of visualization, practice cycles are correlated to a day or week, and then there is a custom of doing this over an extended period of time in one stretch. That would be beneficial. And then gradually one can move on to the study of the treasury of the Supreme Vehicle, and then the treasury of ultimate expanse. And in this way, the approach would be very systematic. So the point is, it is very important to have an overall understanding of the basic framework of the Buddhist path. So, of course, there could be an individual circumstances where some individual practitioners may have residual karmic forces, being brought from the previous lives, and then, in a sense, they are connecting with what is, moving on from already a certain stage. In which case, a very specific instruction from an experienced guru or a master may be an appropriate approach. But generally, for most practitioners, it is better to approach from the basis of having an overall understanding of the structure of the Buddhist path, and then engaging in specific practices on that basis.
Then next, Gurju. Gurju lineage mainly come from Naropa. At the Lama Marba or Tibetan, he received teaching from many Indian masters, and particularly his sort of was the Madhyamaka philosophy is concerned from Mitripa. So very clear, the Mitripa is the holder of the Jantakiti's view, like that. Then the Chakya Chambu, Sunzane, Chakya Chambula, Giluli, Chakya Sunguyari. That is Chakjela Donga Nietzsche. Don't young on the Chakya Chambu. This all in the Umedal Kungoshigore. Dawgata Chakya Shisach, the one, the Nezu Dame Guyare, Choyunguyare. Then Tumumoim, but they not were said the training. Now Churugangi, Vesakomiatua. Oh, that Teda, that Tain Yamnitaya Della, any Chakya Chambosa, Mahmudras at the tree.
So
that's also the Numateji Lotini, that Najo more game Guyare.
So one of the key teachings of the Kagyu tradition is the Mahamudra teachings, and although Mahamudra teachings can be found also in the Giluk school as well, but in Kagyu teachings, Mahamudra is the essential instruction. And when we speak of the term Mahamudra or the Great Seal, this can be applied in the context of Sutra teachings and also in the Vajrayana Tantric teachings. When it is used in the Sutra context, then Mahamudra refers to meditation on emptiness, particularly emptiness. And however, in the Kagyu teachings, when the term Mahamudra is used, it's being used in this Vajrayana sense, where the key point is to really utilize the innate mind of clear light into a realization of the nature of mind. And so the emphasis is really on the cultivation and development and also a realization of this innate mind of clear light.
Tajane Sakya Brubane Majuni, and Tanam and Sakya Lamde Sunade. The debut that duty sang that Yamindi, get off in Yamshi the Jane, the Sungdua, Jenny, the Nangsum Yusums. So Nangsum said again, Dolamdi Sungiare. Nyumba now, Matawa now, then Nanjawala Taba now, Jen Sungsha, now so. The Yamlin Nala, and the Yiga, the Ningme, and the Nyende Range Chanson, Didi Yamin, and the Tandi Sandiare. That in a tree over yoga did, Mrs. Sundunke, the Merche, that in a Lamigi, the Ma Otisa, that did 30, the Saye de Sonyundu, any Gusum Sentana, Lami contradictua, Lamigi. That in Nagachari, Gusum Sedari, Tagi and the Sandu and the Longchaya dire, Juju, Tubju, Debutus. That Gusum Seva Seadi. 다다 시기 말아줘라 예봐. 다 저번에 중네 아니 리버군도 상보스 송샤. 단디 야 냠니 정당 도스면 용도 가버래. 어디 산지 저냥 도스다. 도스면 용부지. 이내다 광고 법서디 사회 터두기 내디 집으리샤. 제니 또 규규 대 뭐였어. 냠용도 하는 거 어쩌시지. 다 될래야 그도와 아도 사뱅송이 뭐예요? 똑본 것이 손점수 어세 규미쳐도 잘했어야지. 다 될래야 군시 규규了 아니 질 남도라 차라 니체 다 차라 니스체에 남도 참무티 디안데 이시처기야 말해 제니다 나란조다 똑방것이 산성수세하게 나도 그규 창신 공백을 이나야 그규 창신의 기록 창신 공백을 찍거리 냐라 남대기 재미주스 아니 마음바에 마음배 제절 동백 의미수스 다들에 나르게 참바디에 바까 천육이 즉 똑같이 봐 결모 조세 마음배 남도 찾고 막 가서 막 까지 다들 쉐바 소마 맞춰봐 대가 가나 산이로다 조서셔제 제윤도 남도 참무실에 되겠다 또뭐 참무치 또뭐 차라니 있어야 또뭐 참무사 들지 거래 다 조건침배야 리포군도 상보병 어떠든 어쩌면이나 얘는 추구사지 송야지 야래 근시다 추구 현지야지 다 안데 대안의 현지기에서 말해 지단달로 또뭐 차와지냐 달로 대강도 로 네트 체체 네트 체니 제베이나 안다 자베르 무시게 측송내대 나리야 해대와라 상탈에 제송돼야 돼. 다 안데 쌤 해대 줘야 돼. 쌤 해대 줘셔. 남도신다 각 케이프게 깨를 못 주시네. 다들 셔봐 소만 맞춰봐. 즉 재미 정중 효과를 도시하지. 다 디간에 아니 일본 어체야. 조진이나 일본 어체야. 나디 진로 파복 쓴다 간다 지 진로들 저 단에 아니 일본 어체야지. 다 연구해야 돼. 다 안들디 근시 규규 뭐 소용도 자네. 다 어디는 쌤 차와. 다디 누구 현지집에 사람도 말해 돼. 이내다 왜세 디 리그날 레고보다. 대안도 조진날이야. 리버도 릭셔니체. 루브르 웨스엠디도 사mol로 릭셔체. 가자. 루브르 웨스엠디디 리베 째체. 리베 째나 용서로라. 다 루브르 웨시바 사mol로 리베 째체. 리베 째를 해야 돼. 근데 인도산에 리베 째제 참절로래야 릭셔 켜져. 근데 인도산에 리버리야 뭐르고 시르고 째지르고 되는 먹고 속도가 자 다른 가서 루브르에 독서 뭔도 들으신배 겁라야 대탐자로 리베 째레 샷데 스타인도 산에 대다라 리셰 켜요 리셰 켜요 인도 난조베 라 유민등의 지기 냠용부터 하네 뇨몽도 주변 내걸래 뇨몽기 거라 지기 단 진단적인 뇨몽을 쳐그래 된데베다 뇨몽지 민능적인 뇨몽사디 민능적인 뇨몽사도 게임을 자네 그 미베 제수 민장와 뇨몽 대게 정신 터도 왜세 디간이야 로파 네트 체제 다 진베 제수 민장와 뇨몽 현지 계배 랑당지 인신제라 코란게 정신 터도 뇨몽 현지 계배 랑운 telle야 저 정수로 심버지도 대변이나 아니 뇨몽 마바 나수 탁세야 돼 레무도가 이게 되셔 라라고 야말다 나 도스체니 또 디는 진짜 안 된디 해대 셈줘야 다디 다네 아니 가사 좋디 야라 근시 규규 라바 남도 참문디 뭐시비체 다 티니 아니 난조도 깨는 거잖아요. 시규 람규 디 세베서 셔서 텔라 제주기 추금 아제샤네 유르자네 기술 세베서 주면 되게 인주 상하 라미 지스 상하게 파게 유르자네 돈이 더 손을 하샤와서 아주 송도 와 양걸 하고 정도 나 라미기 돈이 더 손을 하샤와서 전에 돈이 떡지게 로데 라고 루브르 로데 마임바 뉴물 해지게 왜세 또 왜에 관해 왜세 뭐 쓰잖아요. 칭시 장배 고엔 저거 말해. 왜세가 넘버 로리에 샤워체네. 된대기 왜세 뉴물 해지게 티 동번이 가서다 동번 티니 신나가 넘어 샤대 버지. 저도 와. 자 진리인데 돈이도 손을 할 샤르셔야 돼. 기도 오메가 그 손다되다. 라메가 손다되 맨다 차티샤. 단다데 맨다래. 자다 도디님부 뉴물 해지게 왜세 코레가는 산되는 거도 와. 학계에 그도네. 다데네 림베기 조림기 가와. 야 레이드자네. 다 롱숨을 내도는데 다 저롱 틀리를 내도는데 냠lên 때네. 루브르에 셈디디마 팔라샤 팀. 아니 지성기 루브르에 셈디마 가서 우리 그게 액티브 매버 샵에 서지. 아니 차 롱심디디 액티브야 차야지. 또 되게 좋아. 다들 조진 걸리나 라보 루브에 롱심디 숙천문 것도 주변 내가 올라야 릭시에 캡도 여봐 있는데 냠용게 심바 있나 릭베 못 쳐야지 릭베 랑소 쓰면야지 송겨야래 다 안다 상하 삶에 걸리나 왜세 땅바 하베 내가 당 루브르에 셈던 데베 내가 릭베디 전에 무슨 제 루브르에 셈디 가베 지 릭베디 송 왜세 디송 어제 인도산에 저롱 틀리 냠네디리 응어는 로가 되네 이 말이 쳤다 더 치면
사제
사제 한다 다데 셀동 송주 송돼야 돼 셀와 셈지 체니 동바 셈지人心 셀동 송주 제제 시 송셔야 돼 나데 근시 교육의 콘다 람숨 상화레스 이 정도 그래졌으려나 근시 교육의 코르베 최탐제 체닉 주도 상 순주전에 다다 교육실은 안돼 가서 올라변내 걸어 봤다 탐해변내 걸어 봤다 근데 이번 인도산에 대라 코르베 최탐제로 뭔도 균이 여바 인도산에 체닉 주도 상스 다 람기 똑바디디 연대 주도 상스 땅고 변한 거 아주 대바 지지 제실로 돼야 동료도에 실업 지지 시실로 돼야 나가는 신기지 타 있는 저 시술로 돼야 중국에 전에 되게 달고 시바디간에고 중루제도 와 시바디간에 용되기도 와 다다다네 전부씩 레이고 하고 교원주대 중도가 되는 인도산에 람기 가서 람기 최탐제 연대는 수도 상 톱소가 연대디디 중국 수도 상스 중국 이런 수도 상스 어디서 자 이제 인도산에 근시 규규 컨대 열매 송샤다 대간 렉도 와 자자 어디 되셔다 저 다的但是那什么的但是大概的英文 sorry now too long no
So the Sakya tradition traces its the lineage of its instruction to the Indian master Virapa or Virvapa, and the key instruction of the Sakya school is known as the Lamdre cycle of teachings, path and its fruits, and path and its fruition teachings, Lamdre teachings, and these Lamdre cycle of teachings are principally based upon a cycle of Vajrayana text known as the He Vajra Tantra. And the key idea in that cycle of teachings is the notion of three types of continuum. and referred to as the three tantras. And one is the causal tantra, the basis of all, and then the causal tantra, the explanation of the causal tantra and the instruction based upon this is presented in the form of what are known as the three appearances and also three tantras. The three appearances here correspond to the non-Vajrayana teachings. For example, the teachings deal with what are known as the perspectives of afflicted mental states, cleansing of the afflicted mental states, perspectives, the teachings corresponding to the cleansing of the impure perspectives or impure appearances, and then finally cultivation of the pure appearances. So these correspond roughly to the external teachings, such as the teachings of the disciple vehicle, the self-enlightened one's vehicle, and the bodhisattva vehicle. And however, the central focus of the teaching is really on understanding and cultivation of the qualities of this basic causal tantra, the Kunshi Gyugyu. And so there is in the Sakya Lamdre teaching an explanation of a method of a practice where the three tantras are brought into some kind of mixture or fusion. And so this and the idea of the basic causal tantra is analogous to this idea of fundamental innate mind of clear light, which in the Dzogchen terminology is referred to as the basic awareness that is the Samantrabhadra, the primordial mind. And so, however, the instruction for bringing about a realization of that basic causal continuum is done through an experiential process in the Sakya school. For example, Sakya Pandita makes the statement that he says that in between the arising of different thought processes, the arising of a clear light mind, a radiant clear light mind, remains uninterrupted. So what he is saying is that, for example, if you observe the mind, your own thought processes one follow after another as if in a kind of a sequence, but in between the arising of one thought and the dissolving of that and arising of another, there are interval, regardless of how short they may be, but there are intervals between the transitions of different thought arising of thought processes, and so the practice involves trying to tease out those transitional periods so that one can recognize and these gaps in the arising of another thought and dissolution and arising of another thought. And so this is done through a cultivation of a particular meditation practice, which is found also in the Giluk and the Kagyu Mahamudra teachings as well, where one seeks to cultivate an ability to simply focus on the present moment of consciousness. So this involves deliberately refraining from chasing after any thoughts that look back retrospectively into some kind of memory or recollections and so on, nor chasing one's mind after some kind of future anticipatory experiences, some kind of future directed oriented thought processes. So one refrains from both looking backwards into the past nor into the future through anticipation and hopes and so on, but remains simply in the present moment. So initially what one experiences is simply a kind of an absence or a gap, but through experience, as one learns to prolong that period of this absence, of the simply remaining focused in the present moment, at that time one comes to recognize the subtle thought processes. And this is, although not exactly the actual clear light state of mind, but it is somewhat, belonging or indicative of that basic clear light mind. And for example, in the Dzogchen teachings, it is through this kind of practice one cultivates what is called a sense of wonderment. Simply being aware of the present state and just remaining in that state with a total wonderment and a sense of wonder. And then from this sense of wonder, one leads to a real experience of Rigpa awareness. So this is what Dzapedul Rinpoche, for example, explains. So in the Sakya Lamdre cycle of teachings, although that kind of language is not used, but the basic idea is to really cultivate that present moment awareness with a sense of wonder, where one does not let one's mind follow after the temptation of looking into the past or into the future, but simply remaining in that present moment of consciousness. As one learns to remain simply focused on the present moment of consciousness, then one allows for the natural quality of the mind to express itself, and the natural quality of the mind is clear light. So this is the instruction that is found in the Sakya cycle of teachings. Now, of course, in the Dzogchen Great Perfection teachings, there is a recognition that even when the gross levels of thought processes are occurring, like when, for example, when a strong afflicted state of mind arises, even at that point, given that all of these mental processes are in some sense expressions of this basic Rigpa awareness, and they are referred to as effulgences or expressions or manifestations of Rigpa awareness. Therefore, even the most afflicted state of minds are permeated by the quality of a basic quality of awareness. So in Dzogchen Great Perfection instructions, there is a technique where while the afflicted state arises, one learns not to follow after the grasping and clinging that normally tends to arise with these afflicted mental states. So while, when the afflicted mental state arises, one refrains from falling after the grasping tendency, but rather, maintains one's focus simply on the bare awareness dimension of that experience, and through this way affect the actualization of the Rigpa awareness. So this is a unique method found in the Great Perfection teachings, whereas in the New Translation School teachings, the principal approach is to utilize various techniques to withdraw the grosser levels of mind and energy, and so that the subtler levels of consciousness and energy can become more manifest. Because when the sensory and the thought processes are active, then the subtler level of consciousness remains inactive, and through manipulation of the physiological forces such as the channels and the energy that flows within them and the drops and so on, one learns to withdraw both grosser level of consciousness and the energy, and then allow for the subtle levels of consciousness to arise. So that's the principal approach found in the New Translation School. So this is, in fact, one of the key approaches of the Sakya school of teaching, where it talks about the union of clarity and emptiness. And here, clarity refers to the clear light, and emptiness to the emptiness quality. So in this, it says that the clarity is the defining characteristic of the nature of mind, and emptiness is the ultimate reality of mind. And through the union of the two, one attains the realization. And also this kind of practice teaching is also referred to as the indivisibility of nirvana and samsara, because in this basic causal continuum, all the attributes of both samsara and nirvana are present. All the attributes of samsara, the cyclic existence, are present in the form of actual characteristics that we experience, and all the attributes of the path are present in the form of qualities of the mind, and all the attributes of the result are contained in the form of potentials. So therefore, this Gunshin Gyugyu, the basic causal tantra or continuum, is understood to be a form of an indivisibility of both enlightenment and unenlightened state.
Okay. So perhaps some question. Already here?
Your Holiness, these questions were submitted through the internet.
Yes.
And Professor Cabazon handed them to me. The first question is, in my reading of some of His Holiness's books, I have sometimes seen the subtlemost nature of mind characterized as neutral. But in other instances, it seems as though His Holiness says that we have an innate predisposition for goodness, for love, for compassion, and for enlightenment. So this would seem to imply that the fundamental nature of mind is positive or virtuous, but not neutral. Can Your Holiness please explain?
And generally, of course, we are not talking about ultimate reality or subtle mind. As far as subtle mind is concerned, this moment is just a word. So our basic sort of human nature. The way I think in afternoon session, I think I may explain something.
Okay.
So those people who will not come
This afternoon.
the next session, then you can ask someone who attends.
Second question, Your Holiness. Is there some reason to prefer meditation on the nature of mind to meditation on anything else? For example, meditation on the nature of self or other phenomena?
그렇다. 심갈.
Simply,
그렇죠. That's mainly she refer in tantric teaching, tantric practice. The reason is, as I mentioned at the beginning, ultimately things depend on our motivation. Motivation is part of mind. So therefore, 심리기는 심전직내당 뇌지직내시는 나도 그 로마를 내래 개발서 선반을 내게 개마인스.
So, for example, in one Buddhist text, Chandrakirti, 7th century, he says that it is the mind that creates the world that we live in, and it is the mind that creates the actions that lead to that creation, and therefore, in this way, we understand the karmic action to be the causal agent for creation.
다 안다 되게 세동 숭주사 릭동 열매 대동 열매 사게지도아 디 춘이 버치버리디 다 베나 세동 숭주사 릭동 열매 세사게 동니디 뭐시 분배된 게 동니다 가서 별별 요구되게 동이다. 동이 임배 뭐는 직벌해야지. 이네 최전 싸워다 모임에도 들어왔으니까 그런 게 신이 상당 거로. 안다디 랑기 랑신디 랑기 다 가서 우리 그게 또배 주지 못해 되는지. 자, 근데 인도산에 샘지 춘이 가는 상담 모두 믿어가. 릭동이면 상담 오마티. 자, 근데 인도산에 베나도 사운드 아리안 대회 림면 나를 송야래. 샘지 춘이 또가야 쉬우지 개심 뭐 이마시. 콘데 싸워들 송야. 어디 나도 된 시고. 다 누르는 샤베이나 제단변 다게 최생의 내기 다 전부 또 나와야 차네. 토마 강사가 담에고. 되네 최지 담에 공사 지점을 숨겨야래. 나 라면도 되는잖아. 인심이 습기 듣고는 용어도 저거 샤베.
So, therefore, for example, we have been talking about the union of clarity and emptiness, union of Rigpa awareness and emptiness, a union of bliss and emptiness. So all of these are really perspectives coming from the Vajrayana teachings. And therefore, in Vajrayana teaching, the meditation on emptiness, on the mind itself, the nature of mind itself, becomes very important because although one can take the emptiness of, say, an external object like a sprout and meditate upon it. But the distinction here is that when one takes the mind to be the basis upon which one meditates on emptiness, then one is actually reflecting upon the nature of one's own mind, the ultimate nature of one's own mind. And all of this is really from the perspective of Vajrayana teaching. For example, in one of Aryadeva's texts on Tantra, he explains the significance of taking a mind, the nature of mind, as the focus of one's practice in the Vajrayana context. However, in a non-Vajrayana context, such as the perfection of wisdom teachings, then generally it is said that between the emptiness of the person and emptiness of phenomena, one generally takes the emptiness of person to be the initial focus because it is easier to understand emptiness by taking one's own personal identity or person to be the basis of meditating upon emptiness.
But one sort of the Sanskrit word usually we recite, that is Om Shunada Dhyana Banza Sumbawa Emakohang. These Sumbawa say Rangshi Sajtua. Or that the Kangum Nelu the Chishenkorang Rangshimba.
So, in this mantra that is part of the Vajrayana sadhana practice, there's the word Svabhava, which means nature. And Svabhava, in this particular context, indicates meditating upon the Svabhava of the mind itself, the very mind which is meditating upon its own nature.
그래서 옴 숨바와 슈도 사와다마 숨바와 슈도 항세하게 숨바와 세야 되다. 옴 슈는데 자나마도 숨바와 세야 가가리 된다 가가리도.
So the svabhava in these two different contexts are different. One is svabhava of the nature of all phenomena, whereas in another context, svabhava or nature refers to the nature of the mind meditating upon itself.
Yeah. Next.
I'm wondering if you think it is a lot more difficult for Americans to focus their minds and to be able to reach enlightenment.
그래서 아무래도
that similar that sim nail to pubje sim that focus che the kangen che metros arizo and things are the kanda to be le kangen che metros chikche. We are a culture that thrives on stimulation, excitement, pleasure, and doing everything very quickly. I think that meditation and centering oneself is extremely difficult in American society. Do you think it would be easier for Americans if we lived in a country with a slower pace, where people took more time being present in their daily life?
Basically, I don't think there's much differences, whether Eastern or Western. I don't think much differences. In fact, some of my American friends who spend years of meditation, said their result quite amazing. So these are American, not Tibetan. So that shows basically same human mind. As the external influence, important, but ultimately, the nature of mind itself is more important. So we everyone have sort of same potential, and I think same mental quality. I think like that. That's how I feel. But then someone, I think this questioner, if you're really serious, then thorough investigation, interview more people, then maybe you get a more clearer picture. I don't think it's much differences.
Final question.
Okay. I think 2-3 questions.
Okay. Why did you say Buddhism is like a science of the mind?
That word not originally come from me, but some Western scholar, described. Buddhism is not a religion, but rather a science of mind. So ask him, ask them. Yes.
How do you feel about the use of LSD and other psychedelic drugs to attain higher states of consciousness or spirituality?
Of course, firstly, I have no such experience. Then according to those people who have some experience, then it seems
But from what I've heard from people who have had the actual first-hand experience, it seems that the experience of using these kind of psychedelic drugs tend to bring a greater profusion of illusion. And since we already have a lot of illusory experiences to begin with, so why do we need additional illusory experiences?
Then next. I think in serious practice is concerned, I think should not rely on external substances. Just simply try to
Cultivate the mind.
Cultivate
the mind, yeah.
The nature quality of mind. That's much better.
And a happy heart.
That answer is to come later.
In the afternoon. In your 50 years of exile, you have faced down many hardships and never wavering in your commitment to your people and the fight for social justice. What advice do you have for young people on how to achieve success while staying true to one's moral principles?
Afternoon.
So most of the questions are more general.
Now stop.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.